Here on our homestead, we produce about 75% of the food that we eat as a family. And on top of that, I've got a full-time job off of the homestead. I spend about 20 hours a week making these videos for YouTube. I play in the worship team at church. I try to make sure that we as a family go on adventures and that I go on dates with my wife. And I've even decided that I should take up mountain biking. So how in the world do we get that all done? It hasn't always been that way. And we want to talk about some of the things that we've learned over the years to make so that we can make it happen, having a homestead and a full-time job at the same time. On a workday morning, I got to get up and milk the cow before I go to work. But first thing I need to do is open the door for the chickens to get out on their pasture. And that is actually all that I need to do for the chickens, because Izzy is going to come out here later and give them food and water. I've made this as simple as possible so that I can do this when I first come out, but that he can take care of the rest of it. Right there's Maddie, waiting to be milked. Hey girl. One of the biggest keys to making so that you can homestead and have a full-time job at the same time is to simplify. Making things as simple as possible so that even your children can help out and do some of the smaller stuff, so that that's not taken away from your time to be able to get to work and be able to get home and be able to get other stuff done as well. Not that we want to just make our kids do all the work. That's not it at all. I want them to learn responsibility. I want them to learn how to do this stuff and be able to take care of stuff, and that we can all share the load, and so that we can work together, and then we've got more time to do more fun stuff together as a family. I am the one that does everything with the cows and the milking. K-Dash does give the cows water when they're up in the front pasture here because there's hydrants up here, but when they're in the back pasture, I do have to take water out to them. So pretty much in the morning when I come out here, I've got to open the door for the chickens since Izzy doesn't get up for a little while yet, and then I will milk the cow. And that's basically it. I have tried and tried so many different things and tried to figure out different ways to make things more efficient and quicker and easier to do so that I can do this. I used to spend an hour and a half every morning doing my morning chores, and then I would come back home and have about the same amount to do in the evening as well. One thing for sure is it makes a really big difference to only milk once a day. I milk in the morning and then I go to work, and then I don't have to worry about milking anymore. With twice a day milking, you always got to make sure you're there in the evening. You got to make sure you got everything timed right and stuff, and that can be a real stressor. Milking the cow has always been the biggest chore, the hardest chore, but it makes a really big difference to have all the right things to get it done and to get it done quickly. Right now I'm hand milking, and you can think to yourself, well, get a milker. You'd be faster and more efficient and get it done quicker. But the thing is, right now, she's given less than 2 gallons a day, so it's actually faster for me to hand milk. But after she freshens, when she's given a lot of milk, I will use a milker. And then actually, while I'm using a milker, I will do some of the other chores while I'm waiting for it to get done. All right, I gotta get this in the house for Michelle to strain and get in the freezer to chill and get to work. Got my powered up chocolate milk for breakfast. Ready to get going. There are a few things that Michelle will have to take care of while I'm gone at work, and Michelle wants to tell you about that. And we also want to talk about working together as a couple to make this happen, because that is a pretty big deal. Something that I would really recommend starting out with a homestead is starting with just like 1 or 2 different animals. Don't get all the things all at once, because if you start with just say one thing like the chickens, you can figure that out. You can get the most efficient systems down. You can get the right tools that you need to make that easier for you. And once you get that figured out and you're doing it real efficiently, then you can add another thing on top of that, and then you can figure out how to make that more efficient also.
Another thing that I would really highly recommend for people who have limited time but want to start homesteading is to learn homesteading skills before you actually start your homestead. Do lots of cooking from scratch, because you're going to have to do a ton of that if you want to use the bounty from your homestead. And I know from experience that it can be really overwhelming to have a ton, like have a whole basket of tomatoes or a whole bushel of potatoes, and you have to cook with it and you don't really know how. It's really nice to be able to practice on food that you didn't grow, honestly, because it can be really devastating to know that you might ruin something really precious that you spent all year growing. For example, Cody is going to be making some honey mead, and he doesn't want to use the honey from our bees because he wants to make sure he gets the recipe right before he uses our precious honey that he puts so much time into. You can practice making yogurt and butter and cheese and things like that just with store milk. And then once 5 gallons a day of milk starts rolling in, you'll know exactly what to do with it. I have 4 kids, so obviously my first priority is keeping my kids alive. I don't have to do many animal chores, but I do check up on the animals during the day. We've had cows get out and I chase them back in. I check the chickens to make sure the hawks aren't getting them. I take care of the temperature in the chick brooder for the chicks. Often it's cold in the morning before Cody goes to work, but by the time he gets home in the evening, it's way too warm in the brooder. So I take care of things like that. I also do the lawn care, like I mow the lawn, I weed eat, do all the landscaping. We don't have much landscaping, but we have a little bit. So I just kind of hold down the fort while he's gone. If you've been here for a while, you know that I'm the gardener. I love gardening, it's my therapy. I also do like the harvesting. I would say I do 99.9% of the processing of the food that comes in, like the canning, making yogurt, cheese, butter. We are hoping that in the future we can help each other a little bit more, like have him help me more with the parenting and me maybe help more with the business end of things. But for now, this is how it works out for us. So I personally feel like if you are going to have a spouse or a partner with a full-time job and expect to get everything done without losing your mind, I feel like you're gonna have to use some modern conveniences. There's some pressure in the homesteading community where people feel like you have to do things a certain way, like the hard way, or you're not legit, you're just a wannabe homesteader. The reason that we decided to homestead was because we wanted to have healthy food for our family and we wanted a good environment for our children. If I'm going insane starting a homestead, that's defeating the purpose. And so for me, I take lots of shortcuts. There's things like I don't can my jam, I freeze my jam. I store my carrots in the refrigerator instead of taking the time to, put them in damp sawdust in the root cellar. I use a dishwasher like 2 or 3 times a day. I use an Instant Pot to make bone broth instead of cooking it on the stove for like 12 to 24 hours. The thing is that I have the skills. If the world would just fall apart one day and we needed to live off grid, I have the skills. But while we have electricity, while we have all these modern conveniences, I have chosen to take advantage of them and really enjoy them.
It used to be when I'd get back from work that I'd have more chores to do. I needed to give more water or feed to the animals. For a while I was milking twice a day, and so I had to do that. But now I've got it to the place where basically all my chores are done in the morning, and in the evenings I have to do my projects. And this evening's project is getting these broiler chicks that are in here moved into their movable pen out on the grass. It's time for them to get out of there. And this should be a pretty chill project. In the past though, it used to be my evenings were always so crazy. Every single evening was just, as soon as I got home from work, I started working on projects. I was building stuff, building fences, and there is just gonna be times like that, especially when you're starting out, where you've gotta just work, and you're gonna have to be prepared for that. But trust me, once you got some stuff in place, get things smoothed out, it will get easier. The work keeps going, but it will get easier. It is high time for these chicks to get out on the pasture. They're already 4 weeks old. I usually put them out by at least 3 weeks, but it's been raining some, it was wet out, and my schedule wasn't working out to move them out, so they've been all right in here, but it's definitely time for them to get moved out. These are Rainbow Ranger chicks. We don't do the Cornish cross because I think they're just like fat. They just sit by the feeder and eat feed. These chicks grow a lot faster than like a heritage breed chick. Don't chase it into the woods, just let it go for a little bit. They grow a lot faster than heritage breed chicks, but not quite as fast as Cornish cross, but they still grow really well as a meat bird, but they forage. They'll eat grass and bugs and stuff. They actually run around. With a homestead, you really do have to be willing to give up a lot, especially homesteading with a full-time job. If you got a full-time job, you're gonna have to do a lot of your projects and stuff in the evenings. And beyond that, it's hard to leave the homestead, especially with a milk cow. You got to milk that cow every day, and you're gonna have to find somebody to milk it if you can't be here to do that. So especially when we started, we didn't do much of anything at all, like hardly any vacations. My evenings were just filled up with working on stuff. So we went to church Sunday mornings, and that was about it. We are a lot more free than we used to be. We do more evening stuff. We do more Saturday stuff as a family. We go on a vacation every once in a while, and we'll pay somebody to do our chores for us. So as time goes on and you get more and more efficient, you can do more of that stuff, but you do have to be prepared to give up a lot. All the chicks are in there. There's enough chicks that we're raising for broilers that we'll have chicken for a whole entire year, and probably some extra to sell a few to some friends. I also want to get the cows moved to another paddock, and this is another way that I save myself a ton of time. I have my pasture here permanently divided with electric fence, so that I don't have to move fences every single time I want to move the cows. So I close that one off, and I'm gonna open this one up right here. And that's all I gotta do. Now the cows can get in that paddock, and they still have access to this common area right here, so they can get to their water all day, every day, no matter what paddock they're in. That way, I'm not needing to move the water to each paddock that they're in and then take it out there with buckets. I would love to be able to take the time to show you all the tools and stuff that we use to do things faster and be able to make this happen, that we can homestead and where I have a full-time job. But that'll have to come in a later video. For now, this video right here is one where I did my morning chores as fast as I could and show you each and every step there. So click on that one to watch it next. Because we're more than farmers.
Pick berries like I'm doing here. That messed me up when my hat almost flew off.
Hey, you just took my strawberry.
That's what you're doing.